Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to Making It, presented to you by Fireside. I'm your host, Terry Woolman, and my guest today is actress, author, and singer Lorna Luft. I appreciate you joining us every week, and I'd like to share my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and with abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance, and don't forget to have fun along the way. If you're joining us in our live audience today, we'll be inviting questions and comments during the second half of our show. So make it count. Simply request an invite to speak, and my moderator, Dr. Lisa, will bring you on stage to join the conversation. Lorna, hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
You look wonderful, and it's so great to see you.
Thank you.
You're so very welcome.
Oh, thanks, Terry.
This is going to be a fun conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Let me tell people about you, as if they don't already know about you, but for those who want to know a little bit more, I'll give a little bit of background and then we'll begin our conversation. Born to the legendary Judy Garland and producer Sid Luft, Lorna began her career on her mother's TV show at the age of 11. She went on to perform on Broadway in Promises, Promises, Snoopy the Musical, and Extremities, and has performed in productions of They're Playing Our Song, Guys and Dolls, Grease, The Wizard of Oz, Holiday Inn, and White Christmas. She appeared on film and TV in Grease 2, Where the Boys Are, and Trapper John, M.D. Lorna co-produced Life with Judy Garland, the Emmy-winning miniseries based on her memoir, Me and My Shadows. Her latest book, A Star is Born, Judy Garland and the Film That Got Away, was released in 2018 to rave reviews. She also celebrates her mother's songbook in a one-woman show and CD, Songs My Mother Taught Me. Lorna continues to be a tireless campaigner for charity. After being diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012, Lorna vowed to fight the disease and is committed to be an advocate and fundraiser. She also is a proud founding board member of the Stonewall and Gives Back initiative and many other wonderful things that we're going to be speaking about. So Lorna Luft, welcome to Making It.
Oh, wow, Terry. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You know, I wanted to start by just acknowledging the very idea that you began your you had your debut at the age of 11 singing Santa Claus is Coming to Town on your mom's show in 1963, the Judy Garland show. And that episode featured your siblings, Liza Minnelli and Joey Luft. I'd say your career began with the bar set pretty high, wouldn't you?
I guess, I have nothing to compare my career to. I think that when you're born into a family that is in show business, it's not so odd that you go into the business. It's sort of, in a way, I've always said this, that if you're born to a family of doctors, somebody's going to be a doctor, and you're born to a family of lawyers, somebody's going to be, so it's not so odd what I did. And it's not odd that I went onto my mom's television show. I just thought it was great that I got to get out of school for a week. I mean, that's, everybody said to me, what do you remember? I remember that I was happy I got to get out of school. So I don't find, I know it sounds strange, but the one question I'm always asked is, what was it like? I have nothing to compare it to.
Right.
So I sometimes I really see a lot of people get disappointed because they really want me to come out with some,
something profound.
Right. Profound and all of that. And I think, no, I can't. And so sometimes I feel I'm disappointing people by telling the truth and not, making up all of that, which would come back to bite me. Mm-hmm. But I feel that I have to be honest and say, I don't know anything different.
I'm a big fan of the truth. And I know you are as well. So
yeah.
There's no disappointment there for me.
Yeah, it's gotten me into some trouble, but I
Well,
don't.
likewise.
Yeah, but that's okay.
But you wouldn't change. I mean, it's interesting you say it's gotten you into some trouble, but I don't think you would change who you are. I mean, that's the essence of who you are. There's an integrity that you have. That's kind of an old school integrity. We were talking about that the other day. It's something that we
Yeah,
both value.
yeah. The I find that I, my age, and I can't lie about it. I tried once, but it lasted about 30 seconds. I was doing the film Grease 2, and somebody came. I can't remember what magazine, and they said, "So how do you feel? How do you feel at your age?" And I said, "Well, and I made up, I shaved about 5 years off." And the reporter looked at me and said, "You're not that age." And they said, "You're way too well documented, so don't lie." And I went, "Well, it's true." So I think with age comes awareness and wisdom, and you've done all of the things that you think to yourself, "I could never do that again," because in your 20s and your 30s, you have a tendency to sort of dive into the deep end and not really look how you're going to get to the side. Um, and now that I'm going to be 70 this November,
Yeah.
and I think to myself, it's better than the alternative,
I agree.
and I think to myself, I'm glad. I'm really glad that I'm glad to be here, but I'm also glad that I've gone through a whole experience um, of of being, yes, a bit jaded. When someone says to me, "Oh, did you ever think you would see this?" And I thought,
Oh,
I saw it originally. And it's sort of like, I
yeah.
don't know, I find myself, it's like, I don't know, it's like clothing. Okay, here's a perfect example. So life is sort of like, one great big closet, and you're going to push everything that you wore. Sometimes you may throw it out and whatever, and then it's going to all come back into style, and you think, "I've been here before. I've seen all of this before. I've done all of this before." I mean, right now, if I stood up, Terry, I am wearing bell bottoms, and I think to
Of course
myself,
you are.
"Okay, of course I am," because I think I've done this, and I've been there, and I really like it, and I'm really glad it's back.
Yeah.
But when someone says, "Oh, there's a new trend," no, there isn't. I don't find it. I think I've done that, and I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I know as much as I know now, and I'm glad to say that there are things that I can't and I won't do again. And I think because I did it, and then I think to myself, "What was I thinking?"
Mm.
It's especially in this industry. You think to yourself, you learn to be fearless, and you learn to jump into the water, and you learn how to do it. I find personally that the older I get, the more frightened I am.
That's interesting. I'm surprised to hear you say that.
Yeah, no, I do. I find that. I mean, if somebody said to me, "Okay, would you like to do a show, and you have exactly a week to learn this," I can't do it, and I
Right.
don't. It frightens me. When I was in my 20s, I go, "Oh yeah, sure, I can do that." But I find myself now, um, I guess, and because of technology, because we were talking about that,
Mhm.
I'm somebody's going to, you're going to wind up on YouTube. Okay,
Oh, everything. Absolutely.
and so there's no screwing up. There's
Right.
no, and that frightens me. And I
Right.
think to myself, "Oh, do I really want to do that?" And then I think, "No, I'm good."
That's a valid fear. That's like, when you're swimming in the ocean, I think it's important to be afraid of sharks. It doesn't mean don't go in the ocean, but just be aware of your surroundings and what's best for you.
Yeah, I do. And listen, I really do admire people that are of my generation who are still doing unbelievable things and all of that. And I look at them and I'm so in awe of maybe what I consider to be their fearless attempts. And I think that that's wonderful. But I don't know. I guess because there has been so much in my life that has been frightening
Hmm.
that I don't want to have that feeling anymore. So,
Right.
and I know what will bring that on. So I don't want to do that. And it's like, somebody said to me, well, don't you love um, scary movies? No, I don't want to pay to be frightened. I know. I know people love to be frightened, and they love
Hmm.
when people jump out at you, and they love all of. I know. I'm really. I don't want to do that. I don't want
Hmm.
to. I don't want to do that. I don't
Right.
want to be. I don't want to pay to be frightened.
But there are still things that you are doing that are large. I mean, you're still performing with
Oh yeah,
orchestras. I mean, it's
yeah.
it's not like you're just sitting at home.
No,
You
no,
were
no,
out to you're doing
no.
beautiful, powerful,
Yeah,
grand things with your
yes.
life.
But I'm doing things that I know I can do that are um, comfortable and
Right.
that I feel at home with. And I feel it's sort of like on that really cold winter day, you take that wonderful, uh, whatever it is, shawl, blanket, sweater, and put it on, and it's familiar. And you
Right.
think to yourself, this I'm comfortable with.
Right. The
And
experience. Right.
yeah, that experience. And I love that feeling. And that's why, I'm still working,
Yeah. A lot. And
a
traveling.
lot and traveling and doing all of that. And I've just found myself to have uh, gone through the experience of watching how everything has changed and then making up my mind, do I like this? Do I admire it? Or I'm really good without it?
Hmm. That sounds healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned that it beats the alternative, getting old. And I agree with you. I'm enjoying getting older too. And, I become more comfortable in my own skin. I have a greater sense of humor. You have a great sense of humor, which you claim you inherited from your mom. Yeah.
I did. Um, I find that my sense of humor is my savior
Hmm.
and my safety. And I I don't know if you inherit that, because that goes into a whole scientific thing. But I know that I grew up in a family of my mother and my father were funny, and my mother was incredibly funny, and she was incredibly witty, and she was brilliant, and she was extraordinary. But it was her humor that got her through the rough things because she just saw the funny
Hmm.
in things. And she was so bright and she was so incredibly gifted. So I watched this person who raised me to, instead of um, saying, if I came home and I was crying, it's because somebody had said something cruel about my family in school, she would go into, here's what you're going to say. Half of it I didn't even know, but it sounded really good.
Hmm.
But then the kid would apologize and I wouldn't get a chance to say it, and I would get really upset. But she would teach me things that were funny, and when I think back about it, that's what I passed on to my children. And I find that if you don't find um, humor, and if you don't have humor, it's really, I think that's really very tragic.
I agree with you. You had told me the other day that Joan Rivers had given you a similar piece of advice.
Joan Rivers was, I can't tell you, she gave me the best piece of advice I've ever had, um, because she sort of encapsulated it. I was on a plane with her, and we were both going to New York, and it was a red eye, and she took this plane quite often. And I got on the plane, and I was sitting right behind her, and I didn't notice who was in the first seat. I just wanted to sit down, and I
Hmm.
fell asleep. And I woke up to somebody going like this to me,
Tapping you.
yeah, tapping me, and I woke up. I went, oh, like this, and she said, "Get up." I said, oh hi. And she said, you've slept enough and I don't have anybody to talk to. And I said,
So
okay.
typical of her.
she was so funny.
Yeah,
She was so incredible. So she said, we were talking and she said, you know what the whole thing is? She said, you got to find the funny.
Yeah.
And
That's
I thought
beautiful
to myself,
statement.
it's true. It's really true. You have to find the funny. And you may not find it at that moment, but that's not going to say you'll never find it. And I find the funny in everything.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. And I find even in really dire situations, I think to myself, okay. And it's just the way my brain works now about and maybe I won't say it at the time, but inside my head, I'll find the funny as my release, as my also as my guard, as
Right.
my way of saying this isn't so bad, and all of that. And I find humor to be the greatest gift that you can have in your life. And Joan Rivers to me was one of the greatest gifts that I've ever who I've ever. I didn't know her well,
Mm-hmm.
but I did the Tonight Show with her, and but she said that to me, and it's just she was just so, talk about fearless and talk about someone who just she didn't have a filter, and I loved that about her. And there are so many times that, today I think, oh my God, what would Joan think about this, or what she would say, and this, and where is she, and why isn't she with us? And I think about her because she did give me that one piece of advice.
What a beautiful gift.
Yeah, she was amazing.
Well, I would imagine. Well, I'm not imagining because we know each other personally. We're friends, and so I saw this as a part of what you incorporated into your experience of getting cancer, and watching you through the ups and downs of it, and handling it with a lot of grace, courage, but humor as well. Wherever you were able to integrate that.
I think that also, one of the most important and I guess strong things you can do for something that is really awful and evil and all of that is to laugh at it, because I think that's even worse than giving in to it. But when I was diagnosed, which was 8 years ago, it was quite a shock. And I've never considered this. I know a lot of people use the word journey, and they say, this is my journey. My journey is to Neiman Marcus. Okay, my journey is to the handbags and shoe department, and ask your wife. She knows, she's been with me. So, this is a ride. This is a ride. Right. And I consider this to be, it's got all of the same terrifying loop-de-loops as any roller coaster that you're ever going to go on. And I'm on the ride. And I have learned that my attitude is 90% of my healing. I've learned that I have found myself, you can be sad, but not for very long. And then you really do have to sort of get into your mindset this, I guess if you want to say fight, and you do, and you basically want to, I say every time they've taken something out of me, or I've gone through so many surgeries that have been really interesting, that I always say to the surgeon, promise me one thing. And it's always when I'm being wheeled into the operating room and they go, now I say, stop, you got to promise me that when you take this, you say, F you, she won. Okay. And one of my surgeons, I said, "Did you say it?" And he said, "Yeah," but I said FUI1 because I'm the surgeon. And I thought, it's all about billing. It's all about billing. And I thought, you're good. You are the surgeon.
Right.
Yeah. But I have found that it's been interesting. I have incredible doctors that have taught me a great deal. They look after me, and it's been 8 years, and it was also something that that was my biggest fear of anything, was that word and that disease, and because it just terrified me. It really, really, that was always the terrifying creature underneath the bed for me. And when I got it, I did act a little bit. I did put my head in the sand, and I didn't want to know, and I didn't want to do anything about it. It did paralyze me.
Yeah, that's the word I was thinking. It's got to be paralyzing.
It does paralyze you until someone said to me, they said, "You don't have a choice. You have to deal with this, and you don't have a choice." And I thought to myself, I don't. And how am I going to do that? And it was literally having these incredible and brilliant doctors and scientists and all of that. And I think that if you face your fear and you face it head on, and you think to yourself, you're not going to define me because I don't want you to, I think that gives you a sense of relief. And I also know that we are living in the lucky years, which is one of the books one of my doctors wrote, called The Lucky Years. And I think that when you think about the giant leaps that we have come into full throttle with this disease, and they are working with incredible scientists every single day, that I have gone down to the labs and I've looked through the microscopes at cancer cells, because I want to see that, and I think it's really, for me, it was really important. And I think to myself, we the most important thing in the world of cancer is options. And there are a lot of options given to people, whereas 20 years ago, there weren't very many.
Yeah, and that's a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, I thank God for scientists. I thank God for their knowledge. I thank God for these doctors. I thank God for these people, that a lot of them, especially the scientists, is so important for me to go and say hello to them, was because they never see our faces. They see our cells, but they never see our faces. And I wanted to be able to say, I'm the face you saved. You know, I'm the person that I'm a person, you know.
And I imagine that would be meaningful to them as well.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, of course.
It's great. It's great. But I have found, and I have mentored now a lot of people through this, and I don't play doctor, but I give them the tools to maybe look at this in a different way. Because they don't know. I mean, listen, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, gee, what am I going to do today? Coffee and find out I have cancer? You know, nobody's going to do that. And you just, when you are diagnosed, you're really taken out at the knees, and you just don't know. You don't know how to react. You don't know really what your options. You don't know anything. And so and I feel that maybe one of the reasons that I'm here is to pay it forward to another human being, so that they might not have to go through that part of the ride of fear, and that I can help them make this ride not easier, but give them more information. Because I think with information, you have power.
I agree.
and you will be powerful
I
over
agree.
it.
And also, um, you know, life's challenges are not new to you or to me. Both of us were 12 years old when our parents got divorced. We have that in common. We share that loss, that trauma. You lost your mom when you were 16. I was 17 when my dad died. Again, it's
Right.
the rug gets pulled out from beneath you. But you also, you talk about your remarkable, incredible doctors. You also have a wonderful, incredible family. Your husband Colin,
I do.
your daughter Vanessa, who and Jesse, your son, but also and 4 grandkids, one new one, 10 weeks old, correct?
4. I don't know how I have 4
That doesn't make
grandchildren because I'm 26. I don't understand how any of that happened. No, I do. I have these 4 incredible grandchildren. And it really is, remarkable. It really is something that I am in. I chose a different path to go down in my family of not having my career be as, I'm not going to say important, but that I really wanted, I wanted a family, and I wanted children, and I didn't know if I was. I mean, I don't think anybody knows if they're going to be a good parent. I really don't know if you don't, you hope, but it's really called testing 1, 2, 3, and
or
you
faking
just
1, 2, 3.
yeah, lying 1, 2, 3. But I have found that I that my children, I'm so proud of them both. They're incredible adults. They've got beautiful families. They have the ability now to teach me how they're raising their children, and um, it's fascinating to me because I'm old school,
Right.
and I'm uh, I'm the no cell phones at the table. I'm the please don't FaceTime me before 8 a.m. Any
Well,
of you.
yeah.
Okay. No, but I found that that's where I come from. I come from the I'm a very, very big stickler, and because I was raised that way, with manners, and also about how to speak to another human being. And that's one of my, I guess, if you want to call it, biggest challenges today, of just before you speak, think.
Hmm.
And I find a lot of people don't do that. But I've also found that please and thank you go a long way. And I think that that's it's something that I'm very, very aware of treating everyone with respect. And that's the way I was raised, and that's the way my children are, and that's what I see them raising my grandchildren with. And I'm very, very. I mean, if you want to say that's, a bit old school, then I'm good with that. I'm fine.
That's to me a badge of honor to carry on traditions of value like that.
Yeah,
The lost art, the lost art of writing a thank you note.
yeah. I have to say, that I do. I'm not as good about that.
Well, that's a
Meaning
bad
that
example then.
no. I mean, no, but I am. I do thank people. Uh, but writing the thank you note, and I think to myself, with the state of the mail, will they ever get this?
Yeah,
So then
good
I
point.
think, okay. So then I think to myself, it's okay if I send a note via the dreaded machines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's okay as long as they know that you were grateful.
Right. And you are never short of expressing gratitude.
Oh no,
Yeah.
gratitude is one of my biggest um, gifts. I
Hmm.
think I'm really grateful. I'm a really grateful person. I'm grateful for. I'm grateful when I wake up.
Hmm.
I'm grateful that I have what I have, and I'm able to do for another person what um, has been passed down to me. And I think that I just find I get more satisfaction in giving than I do of receiving. I do. I find, and I don't give to for anyone to give something back to me. I give, and then that's it. I don't put a price on it. It's just there.
Well, here's
It's basically
a perfect example of that, Lynn. Sorry for interrupting, but
okay.
you and your husband, one of the things that you've done is you have fostered dogs for the blind. These little
Yeah.
puppies. Can you talk about that? Because we met one of the little pups at
Yeah.
your
Well, the
home.
little pups are now
Yeah,
they're
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 grown.
they're they're grown. Yeah. When I moved down to the Coachella Valley, um, we had Dalmatians, and at one point we had a litter of 10 puppies, and I really was Cruella de Vil. And when you lose a pet, it is losing a member of
Hmm.
your family. And we had lost our Dalmatians, and I really didn't want to go through that again. I really just thought, okay, I'm done with all of the sadness that comes along with the loss of an animal. And then I heard about an organization called Guide Dogs of the Desert, and there was a luncheon, and they had invited me to the luncheon, and I said to the person who said, do you want to go to, you've been invited. I said, does it involve puppies? And they said, yes. And I thought, I'm in. And I realized that I went to this fantastic luncheon, and I thought, what a great thing to do is to puppy raise um, a, a, a dog, but it's not your dog. It's it's going to be the site for another human being, and how great. And my husband and I thought, this is, in a way, it's very odd to say, but it's sort of like leasing a dog in a
Right,
way, okay?
right.
That you get all of the perks, you get the love and all of that, and raising a puppy is really challenging.
Yeah.
But you get all of the puppy thing, and then you are able to give that dog to the school, and then they will go on to for uh, maybe not, if they don't make it as a guide, they are taught, they have a change of career, and but they will go on to be a dog of service. And we raised three of them, and back to back, and it was really very, very difficult. And everyone always says to me, well, how do you give them away? And I always have to stop them, and I say, you don't give them away. You're giving another human being the gift of sight, because they become their eyes. So don't think of it as giving something away. Think of it as paying it forward to another person.
Hmm.
So we raised three, and now we have a retired uh, guide dog who's a chocolate lab, and he's gorgeous, and he's retired, and he's ours. And I find myself, every single time I look at a guide dog, I know what went into the training and the raising of
Hmm.
that, and I know that that dog is a hero.
Right.
And I'm very grateful that there are many of us, and I'm sure that there more people that they would like to do this. And it's difficult because they say, don't you get attached? Well, of course you do. But they're very, very smart. Because if you find the organization, and there are not very many schools in this country, which is sort of shocking, right when they know that you're going to turn your dog in, they put a puppy in your arms. And you think to yourself, oh, I can't do this again. I can't do this. And then you go home and there's no dog and you think, I can do it again. And they know the psychological thing of giving you that little puppy and all of that. And I just think it's a wonderful, it was really, really a perfect thing for Colin and I to do. But I have to say, Colin was much better at the discipline than I was. He really was. He was very, very good at the discipline. I was, let him crawl up on the couch. Oh, let him do this. Oh, let him do. And Colin was like, no, you can't let them do that. And, of course, he'd walk out of the room and, but I'm very pleased that I did that. And it's a wonderful, wonderful organization.
Thanks for sharing that. By the way, were you good at discipline with your kids? Was that like your role, or was that your ex who kind of laid the law down?
Okay, no, I was more of a disciplinarian. But I would, I had been there and done that. Meaning, when I would find the forged signatures.
Oh.
Yeah,
the notes to the teachers.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right.
Okay, who didn't do that? And I was, it would make me sort of giggle inside because I thought, oh, been there, done that. And then, but I was always the one who, I found myself that there was a point where I did find myself thinking to myself, I promised myself I would never say because I said so. And you wind up saying, after you go around the houses about all of the reasons of this discipline, and then you finally get back to the point of, because I said so. Okay, and you think to yourself, it's coming out of my mouth and I can't even stop it.
I can't stop it.
and you do. It's something about that that your parents and their parents and all of that. It's sort of the last thing of laying the law down because there's nothing else to say. And after you've gone through all of the trials, tribulations, and negotiations of the discipline, then you finally have to say, it's because I said so. And it's interesting now to watch my children go through this with my grandchildren. And I have to say, I have been quite, I don't want to say ruthless, but I will say ruthless when they have called me up and they say, oh, I haven't slept in 3 or 4 days. And I go, click. And I say, I've been there. Okay, I don't want to, I know. Okay. And I think, oh, karma's a bitch,
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
It just comes back to get you. But it really is the circle of life. But then I find the circle of life and then going on. In fact, I was at one point in my life, I was going to investigate coming full circle, but moving on. And we all do come full circle. And I think, but it's the trick of when we come full circle to know when to just keep going. And I find that that's interesting with your children, and now with your grandchildren.
Yeah. And
because it's such a different world. It's a world that frightens me for them. It's a world that I think to myself, they're going to grow up in a world of technology. I can't send an email. I can't. I never learned to type. I didn't know. I don't know how. I don't know. I'm not very good at it.
Do you want to know?
No.
Does it? Okay.
No.
Do you need to think about that? No.
No. Because here's how fast no. Because I can talk to it, and that's that's the whole thing about the thing about technology, about all of this typing stuff. I can talk to it, and it'll be amazing at the language that comes back on the screen that you think, uh, I don't know what language that is, but I didn't say that.
No.
But I have found that that's what they're going to know. I was watching, I think it was maybe a year or so ago. I was watching a movie with my granddaughter, who is she's just gorgeous, and the film had a payphone
Mm-hmm.
in
Right.
a scene, and she looked at me and she said, "What's that?" And I felt the gray go,
Right.
all over my head. I went, oh my God,
Mhm.
they don't know what a payphone
Yeah.
is. They don't know. They don't. Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I mean,
that'll-
think back
that'll
though.
put the-
Think back about when we were kids. Yeah, we're close enough in age to have this conversation. And
Yeah.
when our parents grew up with radio, we had TV, and then we were there when some neighbors had black and white TVs, most, and a couple of them had color TV. Yeah, like the
Yeah.
the various transitions. So, does it in the circle of life? Does it feel that different? Do you think it's a new version of?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I do think, technology, I think, is wonderful and terrifying at the
Mhm.
same time. Only because I think the technology moves faster than we know how to put rules to it. And that's frightening
Right.
to me. But then when I saw this little video again of my granddaughter, and she was just about, I think she was about 18 months old, and she was in the bathtub, and a piece of soap floated by, and she grabbed it and she went, "Oh," and I thought, oh my God, somebody's seeing mommy on the phone, and that's what they think. They're raised with it. It's their comfort.
Right. That's their right. That's their toy.
That's what they're going to be raised
Mhm.
with. I am technically challenged. Ask my husband. The TV clicker terrifies me. Okay, there are so many times when I have to look when my husband's not home and he's out doing a show, and I think, when can he take a break so he can tell me how to turn something on?
But I get that, Lorna, because look, I can run my recording studio, but I'm not sure how to find certain channels.
Oh, I can't
I'm
find
a little
anything.
bewildered by the clicker as well.
I know.
Yeah.
I find myself just thinking, oh, well, I'll just watch this.
Because it's in front of me.
Because it's in front of me and I don't know how to find anything. But then I'll call my son. And what's interesting is my son is in IT. Okay, so he has been brought up on computers and he's brilliant. My son is brilliant about fixing, because he's been brought up with computers and now he teaches. He's in IT at a big hospital in Seattle. So he teaches doctors how to use computers and all that. So, listen, I always call, I can call him and say, how do I do this? And he says, okay, sit down. And, I said, okay, the dinosaurs are still roaming the earth for me. So how do I do that? And it's not a question of not wanting to learn. It's a question of, when I feel that when I do learn to do one thing, something else is coming out. And so all of that information that I've just spent time learning is obsolete, because it's always the new thing.
Right. It changes quickly.
Yeah, and it changes quickly, and
as does our business.
Oh my God. Yeah, it does. It changes.
That's a full-time job just to stay on top of that.
It's a full-time job just to stay on top of what people are looking at, what people are interested in, and what people are looking and all of that. And to me, as I said, I was so cocooned, if you want to say, in being in a show business, incredibly famous show business family.
Yeah, both parents.
And
right.
I was so, I had a wall of security around about media and press and always having to look a certain way when you went out and what you represented and all of that and how. And I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I was raised like that. I don't I really don't understand. I don't understand. I I know it is there, but I don't understand the addiction of fame.
I was going to ask you about that because that was a word, it's an interesting choice of words because you understand addiction because you've experienced it in your life, your parents, your
Yeah.
siblings,
Yeah.
your daughter.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing fine
Yeah.
now. Yeah. But you had said that, you don't understand the addiction of wanting to be famous. So I wanted to ask you to elaborate on that, but also to talk about what in your mind, your perspective, what is fame and how has fame changed?
Oh God. I fame has changed so drastically in my life.
Mhm.
Um, People who were famous, they were famous because of their achievements when I was growing up. They were famous because of their acting skills or their direction or their production or the industry of what they were famous because of their talent.
Right.
And now that has changed a great deal, and you are famous because certain people, I should say, they're addicted to fame because they just want to be seen. And it has nothing to do with what they have achieved and what they will be known for. But it is because of this incredible world of technology that of the internet and of social media is one of the big I guess if you want to call it I find it to be I don't like it. I really don't. I don't like social media. I think it's great if you using it for your career or your job to tell someone. But I mean, to think that you are judging yourself by what people are doing and saying and all of that, I find that to be terrifying and scary and very, very disturbing. But fame is a really good drug, and people are addicted to it right now. I think that people are addicted to just wanting to to see themselves on some kind of equipment. I mean, I've always felt I've always felt bad in a way, and I've spoken to people who are news anchors and who are in the news media because I'm a very big newsaholic, and they're trying to tell a story, and there's going to be somebody behind them that's going to walk by and do one, and I think to myself, oh, wow, you really needed to do that because of there's that thing of I just want to be seen.
Right. Look at me.
Yeah, look at me. And I find and when you are brought up in a family of not having to be that it's controlled. And my life was incredibly controlled. My mother's life was incredibly controlled.
Right. She was a salaried child actor.
Yes, but she was owned by a studio. It was an amazing studio, and it was the greatest studio of its time, and there'll never be anything quite like MGM. But they protected, they owned you, and they made you a star.
You're right. They created you in a way.
They created you.
Right.
They created your name. They created your image. They created your look. They created
who you were seen with in public.
Yes, they created they owned you. And that is the part of the studio system that I will always say destroyed a great many people. But it also made stars. It made stars because of not only the person's talent, but they hired the best of the best.
Mm-hmm.
They hired the greatest
At every
producer
level.
at every level.
Right, from the top to the bottom.
From the top to the bottom.
Mhm.
And we don't have that. And nobody really understands the studio system because we don't have it. We don't even have the studios anymore.
Mhm.
And it's and to me, I'm a very big, of course, I'm a huge fan of TCM, and I watch all of the films that set the groundwork of what we have today. And that I think to myself, look at what they created. Look at what those creative souls did so that we could now go to the movies, and we now have the technology, and we now have the way to communicate with an audience of feeling. And it all goes back to the history of where film came from.
Right.
And again, but those people worked really hard, and it wasn't to be famous.
Right. It was to be good
because
or to be
it
great.
they wanted to be an actor. They
Right.
wanted to be a singer. They wanted to be in film because they had an art that they needed to share. It was their passion.
Right. Right.
Okay. And it wasn't just because they wanted to be seen. It was because they had their talent, and they wanted to share their talent. And I find that to be something that is sad. It's sad to me because when I hear someone say, and I inevitably I do, I just want to be famous, and I think, oh no,
It must make you cringe, right?
Well, I do. I think, oh, how sad. Why?
Right.
Why?
Mhm.
Why do you want to do? I mean, why do you? And then they look at me and they get this big smile because it's. And I think, oh dear. I mean, do you want to be? What do you want to be? What do you want to say with that? And they don't have an answer for me.
Well, and also, I mean, again, your perspective has a lot of clarity to it because you've described you grew up all over the world. You know,
I
you
did.
lived in Europe, you lived in America. You had these great experiences. You also, you described your family as gypsies. You know, the lifestyle of moving around. You also didn't really have a lot of friends because you were always moving around. But it gave you this beautiful appreciation for a worldview of history. As a matter of fact, I know you love history. Let's talk about, there's a historic place that you and your husband have a special relationship with. It's a UK property that was originally built in 749, rebuilt in 1679, and then transformed again into 1842, the place where you got married.
Yes, Highclere Castle. Well, it's not really a castle. Highclere is a very, very famous stately home. And my husband and I were married at Highclere, and it was an amazing, extraordinary experience.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody really knew about Highclere, the stately home. And we were married. And at that point, you can't get married in England just anywhere. It's not like America.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a place that
A proper
has been
place.
given a license to be married in, and it can only be in a certain part of. If it is a castle, a home, and all that, there's a certain part of the castle or the home where you can be married. And so we met the lovely family of the Carnarvons who Highclere is their home. And they were so generous and wonderful. And we were married there, and it was so beautiful. And then about, I don't know, we were married in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
So many, many, many years later, my husband was in his studio, and he's yelling at me, come here, come here, come here. And he said, I'm watching this television show, and it's from England, and it's about this were we married in their house? I said, that's Highclere. And the show was called Downton Abbey. So, and it was so funny because when I would say, we were married at Highclere, people would go, oh, okay. And now when I say, we were married at Downton Abbey, people go, oh my God. And I think to myself, oh, the power of TV.
Right. Once again.
The power of television. Now you want to know all about my wedding. You didn't want to know about it when it wasn't on TV.
Right.
Your wedding just got street cred.
Right. Yeah, it's like, it was like,
Exactly,
who cares?
Lisa.
Yeah,
Right.
Highclere, hello, Clear. What was that? You got married? Who cares? Now Downton Abbey. Oh, tell me all about your wedding. And I think, the power of TV. Yeah, so we were married at Highclere, and I'm so pleased that these stately homes and these incredible castles and all of that are getting the financial help that
Right.
because the cost of keeping these homes
Maintained.
are
Yeah.
just it's really unfathomable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really, 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 really glad that these homes are being opened and that they are being maintained now in the proper light that they should have always been maintained, but that's very, very, very difficult.
Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. Hey, is it true that you're the only person in your family with blue eyes? That your parents and siblings are brown eyes, or is that
They're
just
all,
a piece
they're
of?
all they're all brown eyes, but my daughter has blue eyes,
Oh, she
and
got-
we think that the newest member of my family, we think Kieran, we think baby Kieran, he may have blue eyes. He's only 9 weeks old.
Right.
So we keep, looking at his eyes. And Vanessa says, do you see any brown flecks? I go, I don't know yet.
Too soon to tell.
We don't know what color eyes he's going to have yet. But my daughter has blue eyes. But I'm the only one out of all of my siblings, and I think it goes back to my great grandparents. One of them might have had blue eyes, and so it's sort of. I mean,
Makes you more special, and
yeah. Well, no, I don't think special, but I think I'm the odd one.
well, yeah, I'm the odd one in my family too, so I can relate to that. Not because of eye color,
Me neither.
right? Hey, there's before we open this up to audience questions, and Lisa, I'm Lisa. Of course, you have questions because you're a fellow actor as well. But your mom's 100th birthday is coming up, and there's all kinds of things happening, including a new perfume line. And what else is going on with this?
Oh my goodness! My mom's 100th birthday is being celebrated by a lot of people,
Yeah.
and I'm so grateful. I really am, because she deserves it.
Mhm.
She deserves absolutely everything that is going to happen, and I am eternally grateful to everyone who is planning a celebration of her life. And she touched so many people, and she will continue to do that. And I'll tell you one quick thing that happened a couple of months ago. The Academy of Motion Arts and Science had opened a pretty amazing museum for the Academy Awards right on Fairfax Boulevard in Los Angeles, and it's the Motion Picture Academy, and they've got all these memorabilia in there, which is really wonderful. And they have a Wizard of Oz room. And to open the Academy at the magnificent David Geffen Theater, they ran the Wizard of Oz on this huge screen, and I think the theater holds about 2,500. It's just magnificent, beautiful. And they had a youth orchestra play along with the film, which I thought was really wonderful. That was really special for me to see these wonderful kids playing along with the film. Anyway, after the film, some people stopped me and they said, "Hi, my grandfather was Mervyn LeRoy, and and all of the people who had made the film, their relatives had been invited also."
Mm-hmm.
And there was this
How wonderful.
one young man there, and he said, "This is really the first time that I've seen the movie on the big screen of my great-grandfather." And I said, "You want to know what's really cool about this?" And he said, "What?" I said, "This is our home movies."
Mm, mm.
And I said, "So when anybody says, 'Do you have home movies?' you can say, 'Yeah, this one.'" And it's really, I mean, those are my home movies. My mother did not, we don't have home movies. I don't know why. I guess because my mother was in front of a camera so much.
Right. She didn't want a Super 8 going at home.
No, she didn't.
Right.
She didn't. We don't have any home movies. Everyone's always asked me, "Oh, do you have any home movies?" Well, now I say, "Yeah, I do. I've got about 37 of them."
Yeah.
And it's just, it's things like that I'm very, very honored. And, that there's so many people from, I always say from 8 to 80, that one of her films has touched, or her recordings, or her television shows, or her concerts. And she was such an incredible talent, and the likes of which we'll never see again, because she was really one of the only people, I think, in the entertainment industry of that time that went from being a child star all the way, continued through into her adult life.
Right.
I think Elizabeth Taylor was the second, but there wasn't
Mickey
anyone else.
Rooney.
Mickey Rooney didn't have a career after a certain age, and he talked about that.
Yeah.
He said, "I lost my cute value."
I'm sure.
And I wasn't hired. And that happens it happens a great deal to child actors.
And Shirley Temple, didn't she go on to become a diplomat?
Yes, she did.
Right.
Shirley Temple Black, and she was a wonderful woman. She was she was a lovely person. I met her on several occasions, and she was really wonderful. And whenever she smiled and you saw those dimples, it made you feel so wonderful. She was very gifted and very kind. But my mother was so unique, and to think that I've always thought she was sort of like this comet that sort of streaked across the sky, and then it burned out. And you think, she was only 47 when we lost her, and what she packed into those 47 years of life was unbelievable. And I found, when I made the movie of her life, and I found that I had to really go, and when I wrote my book, and I had to really go and really sort of sift through what was a myth, what was a legend, what was true, what wasn't true. It was really fascinating for me, and I learned a great deal about my grandparents and their parents and all of that. But my mother was so loved and respected, and she meant so much to so many people in different categories. And now to see my grandchildren, my little grandson Logan was at school. Now he's 5, and they were going around the class and sort of asking, kids to talk about their family. And of course, Logan, he said to the teacher, he said, "Well, my great 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 grandmother," I don't know, he's 5,
right?
And he said was Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
That's funny.
and the teacher went to my daughter and said, "I think you should have a talk with Logan
about math,
and about maybe not telling stories." And she said, "What do you mean?" And the teacher said, "Well, he said his great 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 great. He said the only story is he put too many greats in there."
Right.
Exactly.
And
he
the
was
teacher
over
went,
exuberant about how great she was.
I mean, and she went, "Oh my, you mean that's true?" And she went, "Yeah." And the teacher went, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry." But it's
sweet
that
story.
The character and The Wizard of Oz is such a a very I'm very protective of it, and I'm very protective of how it is, that the regard for it,
Right.
because it has been so special, and there'll never be another film like it. And I can say that about most of her films, but that one in particular.
Absolutely.
And to know what it means to people. So this 100th birthday that's coming up, it is sort of consumed my life. And June is going to be a very, very, very big month. And we do have a fragrance coming out.
Yeah. What is it called?
It's hello, Judy.
Of course.
Yeah. Terry.
I'm sorry. It was so simple. That
I know. I know.
else?
I know. Yeah, but it is called a Garland fragrance, and
it is, yeah.
and it was to be tossed into the world of fine fragrances was quite an eye-opening
That's an education.
experience.
Yeah.
It was a real education for
Yeah.
me, and it was the hardest part was making the fragrance unisex.
And by the way, was that something that the family came together on? Did you do that with
Oh
your
no,
sister? Brother?
everybody knew. No,
Right.
everybody knew that, but I was really the one who was going through,
Sure.
the actual
Testing and
testing and
designing.
and designing of the bottle and the box and the what it should smell like and all of that. And we started with the original fragrance that she wore, and then we did a hybrid of that, and then we had to make that unisex, and that was the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Because she encompassed so much of who loved her in her audiences, and she was so inclusive of everyone, and so I needed to make this something that I had to take myself out of the mix of, did I like it? And I thought I always had to say, whenever I was going through all the fragrances and going, would she like this? And
Right.
and that was the difficult part for me, and it was the emotional part. But I'm very, very proud of it. And wait till you see it. It's going to be it's fabulous, I have to say.
Well, how could it not be?
I mean, it really is. I have to say, it's gorgeous.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah,
Yes.
there are all sorts of wonderful, wonderful events happening from every place, from Stonewall to things in Los Angeles.
You were talking New York also, some
New York.
possibilities.
Yeah. So and I can tell you tomorrow if all of the things that we're planning are solidified, because it's just everyone. There's so much, because daily people are coming in saying, no, we want to do this and we want to do this and we want to do this.
Right.
And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. And I'm so incredibly grateful, especially to the Stonewall Inn for what they, the history of what they represent. That bar is, to me, so part of the history of our culture, what everyone went through in 1969, and the start of the LGBTQ community in coming together and standing up for their rights, and standing up and saying, we are not going to be treated like this, and standing up. And that's where Pride was born. And I'm eternally grateful that it was made a national landmark by President Obama, and I'm eternally grateful that people have looked into the history of Stonewall and what it represents, and because it's not just a place that is there, it is a place of magnificent men and women coming together and saying, no more. We will not be treated like this. And I'm grateful that they asked me to be on their advisory board.
That's such a beautiful family legacy.
Yeah, it is.
To be so
but it's
proud
also
of and a part of.
something. It's also something that that's a lot. Okay, I mean, whenever I in June when, to see all of the rainbow flags come out and to see everyone being inclusive, hopefully with pride and all of that. It just, to me, I mean, I remember taking my children down to West Hollywood, and I've got a lot of stories about West Hollywood that will make you howl. About, well, I'll tell you the first one.
Okay.
It was Halloween, and we were then living in Beverly Hills, and my son was about 9 years old, and we were going to go into West Hollywood for the Halloween parade, which we would do every year. And my husband said, I think this year, I think you have to have the talk with him. And I said, what talk? Oh, that talk. Oh, yeah. So I sat him down and I said, Jesse, we're going to West Hollywood tonight and for Halloween. And we may see, and he looked at me, he said, people dressed up as members of our family. I said, you'll be fine. Okay? You'll be just fine. Okay? And then I remember, taking my children to see all of the rainbow flags, and I said there is a legacy that we all are incredibly proud to carry. And I'll never. My kids just said, "This is really cool." I said, "This is really cool."
Yeah.
And it's the LGBTQ community has been incredible in the way that they have kept my mother's legacy in the forefront.
Right.
And I think that I will always be eternally grateful for that.
That's a gift that keeps on giving.
Well, it is. And I think that we also, we're now living in a time where it's just bizarre of the misunderstanding of each other and all of that. So if you can educate someone about, they don't need to be afraid
of somebody who's maybe different than them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that, because we live in California and, we spend great times in London, New York, and all of that, it's difficult to understand. There's a lot of times I say, I don't understand why people can't understand this. And then I have to look at their history. And as I said, I love documentaries. I love to see where it all came from and why it's there and why people think in the way that they do, and how you can sometimes find that one thread to unravel maybe their confusion of why we can't understand each other. And it takes a lot, and it takes a lot, and every single day it gets harder and harder.
Absolutely. Hey, by the way, because you're mentioning all of these things and you've got upcoming concerts and things coming up again later this year, Lisa, are you able to share Lorna's Instagram page so people can find her and everything that they're doing?
Because I had something else running, but I'll put that.
Thank you.
That up.
Yeah. And I also want to invite any of our audience members to jump in on the conversation. So if anybody wants to, now would be a great time. If you've got a comment or request.
Matthew is here with us. Matthew, could you make sure you're unmuted and you are on stage and we can hear you if you hear you?
Hi, am I unmuted now?
You are. Welcome to the show, Matthew. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Sure thing. Hi, Lorna. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
So next month, on June 11th, the movie Grease 2 will celebrate its 40th anniversary. Now, back when it first opened in theaters, I know, it's amazing. You're so wonderful in that movie. But when it first opened 40 years ago, it didn't quite find its audience. And yet, over the past decade or so, it's become an enormous hit online. It's just I see people all the time say that they prefer it to the original Grease now, which you never heard back then. So my question is, what do you think it is about Grease 2 that audiences are responding to so powerfully today that they didn't quite pick up on or get the first time around?
Oh gosh, thank you, Matthew. Thank you so much. Grease 2 was a wonderful time in my life, and making that film and making those friendships and being able to work with the creative team of that film and the actors, and to my biggest, I guess, if you want to say, my biggest and favorite time on that film was being able to spend time with the amazing Eve Arden, who was someone I admired, and I modeled a lot of my career on her incredible talent, and Dodie Goodman and Sid Caesar, and then the friendships that I made on the film. And I think one of the reasons that it was not the huge success that, of course, Paramount Pictures and Robert Stigwood and Alan Carr wanted it to be, is it came so late after the first one. They were going to make the film closer to the original coming out, but nobody could agree on anything. It came out, I think, something like 8 years. I think there was an 8-year gap or something like that when Grease 2 came out. And I think that they everybody compared it to the first, and it was a new story in a way, but it was still it was just a movie about fun. It was just about. I think that that's one of the reasons that people now. I do think that opening number of Back to School is truly one of the great musical numbers of an opening of a film, and I think that that's something that I know Pat Birch was so proud of, who was our director. And I'm grateful that it has become this phenomenon of people enjoying it and seeing it and loving it. And the one thing that I have to say that was personal to me that I really loved, none of us on the film, the first one or the second one, were allowed to take any of our wardrobe because we just weren't. We were told by Paramount we weren't. And I really, the only thing I really wanted was my pink lady jacket. And then I came to find out that Paramount had an auction, and they auctioned off a lot of the costumes. And there was a lovely, lovely fan who bought my jacket. And just a few years ago, she came to one of my shows. I think I was doing White Christmas. And I was in my dressing room, and our stage manager came and said, "There's someone at the stage door, and she has a jacket for you." And she gave me back.
Wow.
And she said, "It's time for this to go home." And so I have my pink lady jacket finally. And something great. I really, 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 I treasure. Now, I know you're going to ask me, have I tried it on?
No, I'm not going to ask you that.
Well, Matthew would, because everybody wants to, have I tried it? Guess what? I did try it on, and it still fits.
All right.
So, great. Yeah, but I'm really pleased. I love the way, I love the film. I do. I mean, now, my grandchildren are watching it, and they just look at me and they say, "Oh, Gigi, you were really funny." So I'm pleased that Grease has an incredible legacy. The show and the film and all the films that go along, and we hold that sort of dear to us. We have that that. I guess that connection, Olivia Newton-John and I have talked about, that we will always have that place in our heart of Grease, because, and John, and all of the people in the first film, and all of the people who did the show, You know, we
Right.
all we all have that camaraderie together that we are greasers.
Yeah, that's a tribe.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Is there, Matthew, by the way, thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
For being a part of our conversation today. We appreciate you. Is there anybody else? Well, yes, there is.
Yes, there is. You might know this wonderful, fabulous woman. I'm not at all prejudiced or anything. I have no partial anything to that statement. She's fabulous. You're lucky you're married to her. She's fabulous.
I am. My wife, Melanie Taylor.
Oh,
Melanie, welcome to the show.
Yay.
Girlfriend.
There it is.
My angel.
Oh my God. I can't. Oh, well, thank you very much. I'll take a bow. My goodness. So I hope you can hear me. I'm in the kitchen. I'm charging my phone, so I don't have my headset on. But
You sound
anyway, we're just friends. You know, gosh, Lorna, how are you? I love you.
I love
I'm
you.
so
too.
happy to hear you and see your face.
Oh,
Oh, I
thank
can't
you.
take it. For everyone
you.
who doesn't know, this woman is so funny. Gosh almighty. When we get together, we crack each other. We can't really talk much because we're too busy laughing. And I'm trying to catch my breath. I need oxygen when I talk to you because I don't know why I'm frightened. And I feel I'm a little fangirling a little bit right now. As long as I've known you, every time I see you, I feel a little funny inside.
Why? We know each other for so many years.
Yeah.
You know what's wonderful about you, Melanie, is that we both came from the same respect and adoration of the people who paved the way for both of us. And I think
Thank you for that.
that's really, really important. And I think that the history that we both share, and it's the stories. It's the stories of
Man.
that we all can have, and the stories that the two of us share about certain hotel lobbies at 3:00 in the morning on a staircase. Okay, and yes, and there
involved.
we have laughed, and we will continue.
I can't wait.
Continue to laugh, but
Yes, we will.
I think that it's so. I think it's really incredibly important that people treasure their relationship because we don't see each other.
No.
And we don't keep in contact. And I think a true friend is someone like you who I don't need to talk to or I don't have a chance to talk to every single day. And then I can ring you up and you can say, so anyway. Or as I was saying.
Pretty much. As I was saying. Yeah.
As I was saying.
That's right.
I think it's the people who say, well, you haven't called me or you haven't kept in touch. I think, I can't be bothered.
Right.
Yeah, we don't do that. We never do that. I call her. I'll be in her town, in her little village, and be like, "Can we just grab a lunch? Can we grab a burger? Can we grab a tea?" And off we go. And I have to say, I'm so blessed by your friendship and your wisdom and your grace. We've loved each other from literally day one. We have a mutual friend who introduced us, and we just want to be together. We just have our little girl friendship.
Okay.
Last time I traveled with Lorna, we've worked together at the Hollywood Bowl. She opened for my current boss, Barry Manilow, and did an amazing set. Got a standing ovation.
That was a great show.
Divine. It was unbelievable. And we've spent some time together in London. And she showed me the house that she grew up in with her mother, Judy. And we just had an amazing day. And I guess if I had to ask a question, I have a couple actually, but I'm curious to know if you're going to go back to the house or to London to celebrate her 100th birthday, or where will you be celebrating that and launching, or are you launching her perfume there? And also with everything, this is a completely different question, but I can always call you when we're done to ask you this, but what's on your bucket list, Lorna Luft? What does Lorna Luft want to see or do? Now that you've done Broadway, you've done stage, screen, television, you're an author, you're a philanthropist, you're a dog mom, you're an actual mom, you're a Gigi. I'm exhausted.
Me too. No, you know what? I
gotta sit down.
Going back, I mean, I'm always in London, and I do walk by that house all the time, and I know that there people are planning on celebrating her her life over there, and they're talking about concerts and things like that. But I think that, my mother's birthday is June the 10th, and I think that that's when we will launch the perfume in Los Angeles.
Okay, fantastic.
And then, but before that, I will be in New York a few days before that to celebrate unveiling her portrait at Stonewall. Which,
oh my God, how
which,
amazing!
Yeah, which is going to be incredibly heartfelt and incredibly poignant for a lot of people. And then another great event that I can't tell you about, but I'll tell you about when I call you after that, because it hasn't been solidified. But as far as that goes, I just can't. It's basically there are a lot of people who want to do a lot of things. I know that that the Wizard of Oz is being brought back out in the theaters. I know that people, and I'm just sort of like one of the. I'm just trying not to. I don't want to. I just can't be so many places at so many times.
Sure.
But
But you must be
really
bursting with excitement. Thank God for Zoom. You can still be in some places while sitting in your living room like you are now. So.
Yeah, but but I want to be. I'm going to go to a lot of the events, and I think that that's really great. And as far as a bucket list, I've never ever felt that. I know that sounds really weird, but I haven't. I've never felt, well, what would I like to really do that I haven't? Because I'm really fortunate in the sense of if I want to do it, I've been able to do it, and if I wanted to. Do that. There really isn't something that I have. I feel like I understand people who do have a bucket list and all of that, but I'm not one of them, because I've been very gracious and grateful and all of that too.
Excellent.
And plus the fact there are. I guess if I had to have, it would be about meeting certain people that I've always wanted to meet instead of to go to a place. There are people,
And who might that be? Who would you want to have lunch with, if you could pick anybody that you already have access to, but maybe you just haven't asked them?
Okay.
I don't know anyone who you wouldn't go to lunch with.
As far as being truly, I guess somebody who I've admired. Well, first of all, there would be Ken Burns, the incredible film documentarian.
Yes.
I think I'm such a fan of his work and what he has achieved in telling these extraordinary stories. And as I said, I'm just such a big buff of documentaries. And so that would be one person. I know this might sound strange, but I don't know what I would do if I ever was in a room and I saw Michael Jordan.
Okay, interesting.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say Benedict Cumberbatch, and I was going to swoon.
No. No, Michael Jordan. I am a complete and utter fan of the game of basketball. And
me too, Lorna. Let's go to Lakers. Okay, now I just figured out what we can do.
Yes,
I'm a round ball girl. I love round ball. I would go tomorrow if we could. I
am so. I mean, he to me is the really the epitome of the game, and that documentary that they did.
Oh my God!
Yes.
was just
incredible.
It made him so human.
And
so that would be one person. I know. People.
Somebody get Michael on the phone.
No, you know what?
Come on now.
I'd have to honestly. I would have to sort of talk and look at my shoes because I couldn't. I'm such a fan.
I love that.
Maybe there. I mean, there have been people. There was only one person in my entire life that I ever asked for their autograph.
Okay.
Ooh. Yeah, and that was when I was doing the Golden Globes. This is years ago, and I sat next to Richard Burton.
Oh.
And I asked for his autograph, and because I told him that I was such a huge fan of his work, and all of he wrote to me on this little, it was like a yellow piece of paper that he tore off, and he said, and I said, I've had such I meant this sincerely, I've had such a huge crush on your work. And he wrote to me, he said, "Dearest Lorna, the crush is now mutual." And I carried it around in my wallet for a year till it disintegrated. I know I should have had it framed, and I know, but I carried it around till it became dust. But
That's great.
Yeah. I've never asked for anyone's autograph or anyone except for Richard Burton.
I love it.
And I think to myself, you know, there are. I've never been a fan of, I guess you would say, of people. I've been a fan of their work. Okay, there are musicians that I'm a fan of their work. I'm not a you know, because fan I think is to be the word comes from fanatic, and I think that it means that you admire, so, and I always admire someone's work, because I think that that's what they have put out there.
Well, you spoke of fame earlier very eloquently and with deep understanding of it, and I certainly stand in agreement. I think we all do. All of us who are listening, you know, it's fleeting, and it's kind of a what's the word I want? It's fake. It doesn't
an
really
illusion. Some people say
it's an illusion, yeah. And so the fact that you understand because of who you are and where you came from, your legacy is so profound and powerful that you know what fame can and can't do. And the work is really at the end of it all, the end of the road. That's what speaks for you, not how many magazine covers you're on.
I've never been on a magazine cover.
Well,
What the heck? Who do we need to call?
But
We're
I
going to
think
call Michael Jordan and get you on a magazine cover
with him.
And a bottle of Judy, right?
And a bottle, and he's going to wear your mom's fragrance.
Well, it is unisex. I mean, let's go. Hey.
I find myself, because of growing up within the industry and having all of the most amazing people in my life that were friends of my parents.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, they weren't.
And friends of yours too, Lorna, as you grew, like you were friends with Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
Like, so that
Absolutely.
arc continues. Because there's been interesting people in your life since you were a child.
Yeah, but I think that also has to do with the family and where you come from, and people want to know you. And I loved Andy, and I spent a great deal of time with Andy, and I'm very lucky that I have a portrait of myself that Andy did. I'm very, very. I love people that you know, and Andy foresaw the future. I mean, when he did say everybody's going to be famous for 15 minutes, I don't think he realized how true that was going to become.
Prophetic.
You know, yeah, I just he really was sort of a voyeur of what the future was going to bring, and how he loved to go into the future and see that more so. And he respected the past. He really, really did. But he was very, very futuristic in his art and in his life. But there are people that I would, you know, that people, you know, I that were in my house when I was growing up, and I didn't know who they were. My godfather's Frank Sinatra, and the first time I ever saw, somebody with that really, really, really extraordinary blonde hair was I woke up in my room one night, and there was a woman sitting on my bed just looking at me, and it was Marilyn Monroe.
I knew you were going to say that.
I knew she was going to say Marilyn Monroe.
She better not say Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, I mean, you know, she was a friend of my mother's, and so it was all of her, but they weren't movie stars to me. They weren't celebrities. They were just friends of my parents.
Right.
Friends of your family, that's right.
So they were just the folks next door.
Right.
But that's why you have a great perspective. You have a beautiful perspective on life, your career, what it means, what it doesn't mean, what it can be, what, you know what I mean? Your perspective is, and your insight is really unique and beautiful.
I just find that people today who respect the history of their art, whether that means that they're a musician or they are an artist, if you just look back and realize that you're not, I don't know if you're ever going to be an original, but just find out where the original came from.
Right. Look
and
back.
I think that that's really important, because everybody is, it's very, very hard to go back and see who was the very, very beginning. I mean, like, for instance, I mentioned Frank Sinatra. Everybody talks about what they know of Frank Sinatra and what they meant, but if it wasn't for Bing Crosby, it's called, let's go back and see, how that person was the original who opened the door for other singers and all that. I find that to be sort of fascinating, of who, who was the original. Yeah, the lineage and all of that. And I find that to be absolutely everything from costume design to film, and I love going back and looking at the stories of what it took and the technicians it took to make certain things. And I know that the pandemic did the biggest harm it did to the live theater. And I know that people are struggling to come back. And I know that audiences are frightened. And I know that all of that. And I just want to say it's just not the actors or the musicians, or it's also the people who make the show happen, and what it has done to them, and what it has done to costume directors, and what it has done to costumers, and what it's done to the sets and the designs and all of that. And it's been just this really, really unbelievable rabbit hole of darkness. But I do feel that we will crawl out of it. But it hasn't really come back to really what it was. It may have started in New York with audiences, but certainly in certain parts of the country that it hasn't. And I just want to be able to say, please don't forget to appreciate and go see.
Yes.
Please go to a concert, go to a performance of a show, go and support live theater, whatever that is.
You're absolutely right. You probably have noticed, just like I have, being on stage now again after the pandemic has sort of ebbed and flowed, and it's going to keep doing that. We have to stay resilient. We have to stay flexible with this thing, and have show a little more grace to people, so that we can continue to get through it. It's not just a one and done kind of thing. And I think that people have really missed that chapter. As you know, Lorna, as a performer, it's so challenging to get back out there anyway, because we're not sure, but we're dying to do it. We want to bring you entertainment. We want to show you what we have to offer. It's our offering. It's what we do, but we can't do it if we don't feel safe.
No, but we also have to understand that people are still frightened.
Everyone is. That's right.
And I think to myself, okay, I understand that, but let's not listen to the talking heads.
No.
Okay, and let's not listen to a lot of people who are doing a lot of this and not having the information that you may need about what you can do. And what if you want to I want to say, just use your head.
Right, be mindful.
Common sense.
Just use common sense. And if you want to go and see something, do it, but use it, find out what the theater requirements are, what this, that, I mean, I know, and that's exhausting for people.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And I understand it and I get it. But the point being is that as the great Julie Stein said, let us entertain you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Let us do that. And because that's our gift.
That's our gift.
And that's our gift. And
And we need it.
And listen.
Yeah, people need it.
We so need it.
People are starved.
I went to a live show last week for the first time since the pandemic.
Wow.
Radio Center, went to see Newsies. And I was trying to contain myself so I didn't embarrass myself in the theater. I wanted to jump up and down in the aisle and say to people, do you see these people?
Yeah.
Do you know how many months they've been rehearsing and they had to wait 2 years? I'm going to need you to be a little more emotionally expressive at the next applause opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was like, hi.
I remember the first time when I was able to see a live, I mean, and first of all, I don't even believe we have to say that what we've been through. And I don't think that we should forget that either.
Right.
I really don't, because we have a very, very easy way of forgetting things that are unpleasant.
Selective memory is
and I think that that's really important. But I think that like the first time that I got up and I just heard the song in my brain of what is it that we're living for? Applause. And I thought, oh my God, that's what we're living for. And how odd is it that we live to have people validate us by doing this? And you think to yourself, it is the sound of love. It really is the sound of acceptance, and it's the sound of everybody around the world. And yes, it was the sound we made for the healthcare workers. We banged on pots and pans and we applauded them. And we did that because people don't realize how much that sound means.
Globally, by the way.
Even when you go into, like a little birthday party in an office building and somebody does that, it's extraordinary what that sound means.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that to be able to do it again I don't think there is a performer artist that takes it for granted anymore.
No, we won't ever again.
No, we won't.
Did a show. I have to say, I did a show in August of 2020, right after the pandemic started, and it was really kind of a trip. It was a drive-in show, so we performed.
My husband did one of those.
Wow.
Did he really?
Drive-in theater, right?
We're talking about applause. I'm reminded of that. We literally, we live to hear people literally applaud for us, but people drove in and watched us perform a live Motown show on a big old stage, completely sanitized for your protection, all that kind of stuff. But of course, they weren't able to sit in chairs and whatnot. So they drove up in their cars and we'd finish a number. You know what they did? They flashed their high beams and honked their horns. And it was such a thrill. Like even that was like, talk about starved. And I didn't realize, like you said, we missed the sound of applause, but hey, I'll take it. It was so cool.
It was
people leaning on their horns and leaning out the windows and waving. And it was really cool.
My husband has been doing the show Forever Plaid as a musical director. And they did a big show.
Down San Diego way?
Down San Diego way.
That's where we did ours.
And it was just, when everybody's saying, if you like this, flash your horns and honk your horns, it was it really, but it's the sound of acceptance.
Right.
It was so satisfying.
And love.
That acknowledgement.
The sound of acceptance.
Being acknowledged and being celebrated.
Yeah, it was so great.
I mean,
especially so early on. It was so risky, but it was worth it.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have to say that all of the Zoom, I didn't do that many, the Zoom concerts, okay? I can honestly say I hated every single one of it. I can honestly say that I did. I hated it because I thought this is the most insane thing that I am putting on a pair of lashes to stand in my living room hear nothing.
Right.
Okay?
And speaking to my imaginary friend, that's what it felt like when we started doing them.
I thought to myself, I really hate this. And then and the other thing that I really sort of started to get really annoyed, was I was sort of tired of, then it became this big thing. But I was sort of annoyed, okay, and this is who I am, and Melanie understands who I am. I was really annoyed that I was watching people in their kitchens who could not find a mascara. That they had no makeup on. And I thought, Can anybody find some eyelash glue? Okay, can anybody
Lorna,
find?
people had given up. People had given up.
They had given up.
I need you to care a little bit.
I just need you, just one little piece of glitter. Can somebody find this? I got really annoyed because, again, I'm old school. So there I would be, with the lashes and the thing to do a show for and I thought to myself, when I would see a lot of people standing in their kitchens without any makeup, and I think, I'm horrified at all of this.
Well, listen, I'm with you. That's why when you said earlier on about no FaceTime, ask my husband.
Right. I
am not down. Do not FaceTime me unless I know you're calling on there and I can pull it together. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
I'm that girl too. I'm old school. I don't want you to see me looking crazy at 7:00 in the morning. Oy vey. Anyway,
I think it was also the way that we were raised. It was about when you look at our parents.
Yes.
Whatever they, if they were in the business or not in the business, but there was a point where our mothers, they dressed up.
Honey, to go to the market.
Yes.
Right.
They dressed up. I mean, that's what I always thought that was sort of odd. And I was saying this to Terry the other day. When I came home when I was a child and I would turn on television and some woman was in a dress vacuuming, I thought that was extraordinarily odd. And I thought it was extraordinarily odd for people to sit down at a dining room table with their family for dinner, because we never did that. We were constantly, it was always constantly on the move. My mom was, very, very rarely home because she was working all the time. But I mean, all of the 50s of people, and then I don't know, I get annoyed. I find myself about the way the casualness, if I have to say that, of
Yes.
Do you remember when you dressed up to get on an airplane?
Well, yeah,
oh,
of course.
don't get me started.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. I was
And the
just
way
at the
people
airport
come
this
into
weekend.
a theater?
No.
People look crazy.
I just watched 2 sets of
Sorry.
bonnets and I just can't anymore with that.
I know.
Yeah, people are like, but they want to be comfortable. I want to be comfortable too.
But
you can be comfortable,
But you
and
can be
not look like you
comfortable
just rolled out
combing.
of bed with your
Yeah,
comforter.
you can be comfortable combing your hair. That was comfortable.
How about that?
There was
I
a
think-
day when combing your hair was comfortable.
Well, I think also
Right.
I equate that. There have been so many times on a daily basis where I have said to Colin, they didn't have a mirror when they left the house.
They didn't have
Okay.
my mother says they
No
didn't have
friends.
nobody loved them. Someone that loved them wouldn't have let them leave the house looking like that.
No mirrors and no friends.
Yeah,
That's
people
what
that
we
love
say.
you don't do that to you. It's like, baby girl, come on in here, take that roller out.
Yeah.
No, I know, but just take it out and comb the
Because
thing out.
I know. And is flying really that uncomfortable? Like, what are we talking about? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, is it an 11? Like, you literally, people act like their head's in a vice or something. Like,
Right. Put on a
Well,
pair of
I
long
just
pants.
find-
Right.
yeah.
Like, wear your pajamas to the
Pants.
airport. Why don't you?
What about shoes?
Right.
I mean,
Well,
it's just,
yeah.
I mean, I thought that was the only thing about the pandemic. There were some good things, okay, about what we went through. And I had to there were just a little baby list that I would have. And the things that I found that were good about the pandemic. And one of the things that I found good about the pandemic was there was a lot of great TV.
yeah.
Yes.
There was a lot of great television.
And you had time
And
to
you had
watch
time
it.
to watch it.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. But
time to watch.
okay, the one thing that was to me, I'm not a big fan of airports. So to travel at the when we started just to open up and to go into airports that were really empty.
Mhm.
I mean, I know that it was incredibly bad for the business of all that, but for me, I really did enjoy that.
Right. You could exhale finally.
I could
walking through an
finally,
airport.
yeah, I found that, And now with traveling, because I've gone to England and I've gone back and forth, and I've gone,
Right.
I've traveled quite a bit. And yes, I did have COVID. I did get it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Pretty recently.
pretty
actually.
recently.
Yeah.
And
Bless your heart.
and I think it was more scary when my daughter had it and she was 9 months pregnant.
Right.
That's
Oh
what
my
was,
gosh, Vanessa, no
yeah.
way.
No,
Yeah.
Vanessa had it when she was Kieran. Kieran
Come
hadn't been
on.
born yet, and so it was 9 months pregnant, and she got it. Logan, her son, got it. My son-in-law is a first responder, and
Oh,
so
wow.
so I mean they all got it, and that frightened me more than when I got it.
Yes, I'm sure.
But
I
then
see
again,
why.
I did my homework about how to take care of myself
Yes.
and what to do. And I think to myself, yes, and have I gotten my fourth booster? Yep. And my husband just walked out the door to get his.
And we're doing
Wow.
ours next week.
And
Yeah.
I think to myself, listen, again, it's about science and
It is.
trusting the scientists and listening and doing all of that. And you think to yourself, okay, vaccines are extraordinary, and I think the saddest thing that has happened to us as people is that everything now is politicized,
Mm-hmm.
and I find that it wears on me, and I just find myself exhausted from saying no, listen. And it's just, once you do that, I don't think there is any way to go back. And I think to myself, just if you really want to find out about something, just read the reality of it and make up your own minds and all of that. And I just found that that's what made me exhausted. I mean, and there are still, do we wear a mask? Do we not wear a mask? Do we do this? It's common sense, and do what you feel comfortable with. And if somebody is wearing a mask or whatever, don't be
Let them wear it. Who cares?
Who cares? I mean,
How does
please.
that impinge on your personal space, your rights, whatever you think that is? Who cares?
Stop it.
I Japan.
Listen. I have to tell you all that I
got so used to seeing it. It was just a normal cold or a cough or allergies or who knows why, and it doesn't even matter. Why does it matter? But that's the thing you're saying. It's the politicization of this.
Yeah.
The virus doesn't care who you voted for, everybody. It just doesn't.
No kidding.
Yeah.
But I just find it to be, look, I've come back from London. I go up to Scotland, all the time when I go to England, because it's my heritage, and I am I have, a part of my heart will always be, Scotland. And I have found because I've been there since this, I don't have the words to say what this war, what it feels like when you go to Europe right now, because it is on it with the Ukraine. And to know, my grandmother on my father's side was born in Odessa. So I am Ukrainian, and I can say that. And I wear my yellow and blue flowers and all of that when I am on stage. And to see the devastation, what this has done to a country, and that it will, hopefully, that it will not spread to other, that it will stop. And how the Ukrainian people, their tenacity, their pride, you want to talk about guts, and you want to talk about fighting back and patriotism. It's extraordinary. When I was in Scotland, to go down Princess Street, to see all of the Ukrainian flags and all of that. And it was just that built-in, I guess, reminder of anyone who has been through a terrible time in their country, to sympathize with people and to wrap their arms around refugees. And I was lucky to meet an organization that is feeding the refugees that have come over from Poland and all of that. And I just feel that if all of us just did something, and I don't know what that is for you, and if it is giving money to the wonderful organizations that are for real, then do that. And if it is going through, just do something.
Right.
And I think that that's so vital right now, because I met a woman, and she told me that she had an apartment, and she left the Ukraine, and she said, now I have a plastic bag. And I thought to I was in a state of such despair for her, and I hugged her, and these people don't have anything, and it's not that they don't have, we've all gone through disasters, whether it be, the wiping out of your town from a natural disaster, which is awful and horrendous. But to think they don't have a country.
Right.
And that's why I just think to myself, my grandmother, came from the Ukraine. And I think, that there's such a huge part of this country that were made up of refugees that came here.
My heritage as well is Ukrainian, and
it is.
Ukraine and Prussia. The Russian Jews. But we, as a matter of fact, Melanie just this past year for a gift did the DNA thing, and that's what came up. Shockingly, I'm white. I wasn't very exotic. I don't have pieces of Africa and all the wonderful things that Melanie has, but it did mention absolutely Ukraine.
That's amazing.
It is. And by the way, one of the organizations that you work with that you're speaking about is called Empty Kitchen Full Hearts.
Yep.
They're based in Scotland.
Yep.
I looked them up. They say we turn surplus food into healthy meals for those who need them. Since April 2020, we've provided over 1 million meals free of charge. You can find them at emptykitchens.co.uk.
Yep.
So check them out.
And they're an incredible married couple that started doing this, and they're darling and they're wonderful. And I can't wait to, when I go back in November, to go to Scotland, of course,
Sure.
and to work with them again. And I just find them, as I said, people are amazing when it comes to crisis, but I find people to really, really also, you'd be shocked at how giving someone can be. And I just find that now at a time where it is it's a frightening time.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. But I think what we have to do is, again, just whatever you do something. Please don't sit in your house. This is all I can say. This is just my little speech. Just don't watch TV and say, this is sad. Whatever it is, do something.
Everyone can do something.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Martin Luther King said, not everyone can be great, but everyone can be of service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is greatness in itself.
Yeah.
So thank you for your service, Lorna.
Oh, no,
thank
you
for doing your part.
I think that that's where I come from. And I think because of my mother, living in the 40s and going through World War II and, and that time that it just taught her something, and then she passed it to us, and I will pass it now to my children and to my grandchildren. And
they will continue to do the same.
Yeah. And I just think that's a wonderful thing. But I find what I find that is disturbing is the people who sit and watch TV and say that's sad, and they don't do anything.
Right.
And I think I think that if you do something, you've done a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for speaking so clearly and passionately about that. We stand with you in that, Lorna. And as we wrap up the show, by the way, because I don't want to keep you any longer.
Okay.
I could do this all day with you, but I'm so miss seeing you in person. I look forward
Oh, well,
to
we'll
that
see
again.
each other really soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can celebrate your mom together.
Oh, absolutely.
I'd like to close the show by asking you the questions that I have 3 questions I ask all of my guests.
Uh-oh.
And they're simple, and they can be short answers.
Okay.
The first is, because the show is called Making It, can you tell me what making it means to you, both personally and professionally?
Making it to me means giving back to another human being. And that's what making it means to me. That I can give something to someone else without wanting anything in exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I know I've made it.
Beautiful. My second question is, can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
3 steps to success. I would have to say you've got to work incredibly hard at your craft, at your craft. And to know that there is someone right behind you that is waiting for you to step into that pothole and fall down.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll take your place real quick. And I think that the real success of longevity is your craft, and to always finding that you can do better. You can sing a note longer. You can find a song that you can do another something with your acting ability, and that is going to be success. The work that you put into your art. Yeah.
And by the way, people, if in case they don't know that, you still train. I still train.
Yeah. I had
Melanie
a
still
lesson
trains. Lisa
yesterday.
right.
I had a lesson yesterday. I have an incredible a vocal coach named David Sabella, whose brother Ernie Sabella, and Ernie was the voice of Pumbaa in The Lion King. And Ernie and I did Guys and Dolls together. And then David was the original Mary Sunshine in Chicago. And I still train once a week with it's just about, it's like, as we get older, our vocal ability does change. And I found that was the one thing, that was another good thing about the pandemic. I have to find good things because the bad things really outweighed the good things. But one of the things I thought, let me take this time to have those lessons,
right?
And let me take that time to really improve. So when we go back to work, not if, when we go back to work, I will have had that time,
right,
to work on my vocal skills, and it was really fun. I had a lesson yesterday, and I find myself, it's like with any instrument, you've got to play it or use it or do it. And I have to say, I'm not good, but it's one thing my husband he gets on me about. I don't sing every day. I don't.
Oh my God, that sounds like my husband.
I mean, I don't. I just don't. And then, of course, when you have to go to work, all of a sudden, you're doing your vocal warm-ups and and all of that. But I don't sing every day. I find myself just, I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's like my mother never had pictures or I mean, not pictures, but, home video, because that was work.
Right.
And
that's what I was going to say. Cosign.
Yeah, you and Melanie share that.
Peanut gallery. Yes, it does feel a little performative to sing every day. I don't know how else. I agree with Lorna. You nailed it. I've never been able to put my finger on it, but it just feels like work. So instead of You know what I do? I do yoga, or I do physical exercise. Like I literally just took a walk around our beach peninsula at the top of the show. I was like, I need to get outside. But yeah, doing the me's, it's like, oh my God, I'm so bored. But you know, I do
know. But
when I
mean,
have to work. But
when
that's
we
it.
have to go to work. The thing is that Colin is always on me about me singing every day. And because because he plays an instrument, because he's a pianist
Yes.
and orchestra, he plays every day. And I said, that's
So does my
great
mother.
for
Yeah.
you. You know, but
I do as well.
that's you do. But I think as a singer, when we're not working, I find myself, you know, like I've said to my girlfriends, you know, in shows, do you sing every day? And there are a lot of them who say, yeah, I'll warm up. And I think, for what? And that's something I go, you know, I shouldn't be saying that.
Sounds so familiar.
But it's like, if would you go to let's say, do you lawyer every day? Do you doctor? I mean, do you know? And the other thing is that dancers. I know that dancers, they take class, which is great. But do you literally pirouette around your living room every single? You know, it's just that's because I don't know why, but there are certain things to me that I equate with work. One is makeup, and the other one is singing every day, because that's what I do for a living. And
you know, when you are your instrument, it's different than when you have a piano or a guitar or a banjo or whatnot or a horn. It's different. It just, we are the instrument. You are your instrument, the voice, the body, the movement. And so, yeah, it feels like we're goal oriented when it comes to our gift or our talent, if you want to call it that, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, I have to have a means to an end. Terry and I actually are going to do a session in a couple of hours. I have a little thing that I'm going to sing for a producer friend of mine. I'm going to warm up before I sing. I didn't warm up this morning. I had my coffee and I carried on. So I get it.
Yeah. But I find, I mean, and it's not, believe me, for the people who are listening and watching in this, it's not laziness. It's just what we equate with work. And I think that sometimes you equate things with what you do, and you think to yourself, we don't need to do it every single day. But like, for instance, like, when I'm going to go and do a gig, yes, I do. Then I do warm up, and I do all of that. And I do, you know, all of the things that one is supposed to.
Right. You have your practice and your discipline that you know works for you.
You honor your, you have to honor your, make sure you're a top tip.
That was the one thing that I really found really interesting for the 18 months that I went, and I had the thing of saying, you know what I've never really had time to do. I've never had time to vocally be able to stretch a part of my voice where I have wanted to really, really work on it, stretch. And I did that. And it really has worked. And I have found how to do certain things that vocally that, I mean, I can say this, and Melanie truly understands this. Honey, I'm singing in my original keys.
Right.
Amen, girl.
And I think to myself, yes, because, you know, it's very easy when you live with a musician. And Melanie knows this better than anyone, because she is such an incredible singer and such an incredible artist, who I'm such a big fan of. But it's so easy for our husbands to say, oh, I'll take it down a half step.
Yes.
And that makes it very easy for us. But there is, I don't know why I equate that with failure. And I know that's wrong. And Colin is always saying, why do you not want me to? And I say, because I can still do this. And there is just something, and I guess I equate it with age, and I equate it with failing to be able to, and that's what I did during my time in lockdown, is that I worked on getting my voice back to where I was before I was, you know, not able to take that time to work on it. And
Right.
I'm glad. I'm really glad. I'm glad I did, and I'm glad that I can now go back to my original.
Yeah.
My
Yes.
keys.
And
Congratulations.
by the way, Lorna, you were also recovering from cancer. So those medications change your voice and
Yeah, I mean, yes, they do. But I'm not going to I'm still on immune therapy and
Right.
on chemotherapy, and I will be for the rest of my life.
Right.
But I
you
just have been
never let it get you down. I think a lot of I love what you're saying about original keys, and Terry can tell you I fight with it a lot when I'm recording, especially if it's not an original song. And I wonder if some of it is because we hear it in our head. You know what I mean? It's like there's a record player in your head and you hear things a certain way. You remember how you maybe recorded it the first time on your albums or your shows that you've done. And you just want that purity of it. You idealize it a little bit. So it does
but
feel
I think
like.
also, don't you feel, Mel, that you feel that it is taking you back to where you were when you sang it originally?
The original intention and experience.
And your age.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree because there's an intention behind every key. Every key has its own color. I see things in colors kind of. I'm a little bit of that weirdo that, like Dr. Oliver Sacks wrote about. Like keys have colors.
I have to tell you guys something. So I'm going to tell you something. Okay. So I know that you're going to, So I got to tell you this because this is amazing. I've got two darling, dear friends of mine in Scotland. And they are incredible musicians. And they're Warby and Farrell, and they're just extraordinary. And they are concert pianists that do a show with one piano, and it's four hands on one piano. But they have figured out a way, and this is extraordinary. And they're going to premiere this at my mom's perfume launch. They have figured out a way that every single note on a piano has a number. Okay. And you can go from 1 and 2 and all the way through the 88. Okay. So what they have done is they have taken my mother's name. Okay. Ooh. They have taken the J and the U and they've made a complete song out of her name. So they do this, and they've done it for Colin and they've done it for myself, that your name now can be your song.
That's great.
Oh, what a clever idea.
It's a great idea.
Wow,
it's a great idea.
Cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, so they're doing that. And it's such a wonderful way of paying tribute to somebody.
Sure.
Yeah.
With their name.
And this is going to be great. The celebration for your mom is she's going to be smiling everywhere.
Well, I have to say, Melanie, you would have. I'll show you and Terry when we finish. I'll show you when Kieran was born. Okay, I went into the hospital room and he was in his little bassinet, and Vanessa said to me, "Okay, Mom, I need you to look out the window." It was a perfectly sunny day, and it was in, San Diego, but there was one rainbow.
I heard her tell that story on the Today Show.
Yeah.
And I saw the photo.
Yeah.
I saw the photo. Mel, you have to see this.
Yeah.
It's just
sweetness. Look at that.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, okay, all right, okay. And I'm a big believer in, I don't know if it's real, but I take it for a sign, and I'll take that.
Me too.
I take it too.
Absolutely. I'll take it too. Oh, Lorna, thank you for sharing that. Love you.
No, I mean, listen, it was great.
I have one more question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's okay. At this point of your life, Lorna, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
My younger self?
Little Lorna.
Little Lorna.
Little girl Lorna.
Don't give up.
Ooh.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
On anything.
Yeah, on anything.
Yeah.
Well, you don't. Nor do I. I think that's part of the reason we're friends.
I think we're friends because we get it and we understand each other. And, there's something about saying, I bought the hat, the water bottle, and the T-shirt, and we have.
Yeah.
And I think I think there's something great um, about that. And I think that, I find myself saddened, and I think you'll agree with me, of being frightened of aging.
Mhm.
Okay, just go into Beverly Hills, um, and there's nothing wrong in getting older.
Mhm.
And don't be afraid of it. Just embrace the fact that I always think that every single thing that has appeared is a story.
Right.
And I think to myself, that's sort of cool.
Hmm.
That's really great. It's great to, and I think it's more of, I think it's more of an American thing, where when you go into Europe and England and all of that, I mean, people don't quite understand the fear of age.
Hmm.
They embrace it,
Right.
and I just think that's sort of cool to do.
I do too. They become more magnificent with every year. Every wrinkle, every gray,
I think so too.
every experience, every memory.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
elders are respected differently in other countries, differently than they are in the States, needless to say.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. We've learned that from traveling, haven't we?
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
observe how elders are treated in other cultures. Japan, you mentioned the UK, Africa. I mean, that kind of wisdom, that kind of life experience is treasured as it should be and respected. And like, what can you get? What can you learn? I mean, as opposed to everyone, Botoxing themselves into a stupor, you're not fooling anybody.
I just find that, I find the way that even, I find this, I find us to be living in this country in a microwavable everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is faster and quicker and all of that. Whereas you go, and I don't know if you've been watching the CNN, the Stanley Tucci.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I mean, first of all, I go and he's just wonderful. It's just wonderful.
So-
And all of the people in Italy, and the way that they eat, and the way that they look at food, and the way that they take the time, and the way that they do all of that is just so important. Just for a second, when you think to yourself, okay, you just have to say, and I do catch myself saying, I just need to stop.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was given to me in sort of a really sort of unfortunate thing of cancer.
Sure.
But it has made me, the one thing that cancer has done for me, and I have to say that it is a good thing. It has made me live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it has made me live in the now.
Right.
And that it doesn't, I don't know what the future is going to have every single day. So I live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, I think that's also with age, but I also think that that's something that is just sort of satisfying, that I can sort of give it up for what's going to happen tomorrow, because I don't know, and I don't panic, and I don't freak out, and I don't all that. I live right in the now.
Mm-hmm. That's all we have.
Well, yeah, but there are people who can't do that.
Right. Right. And you're mentioning Stanley Tucci show. I mean, that's I was just thinking that that he's taking the moment to stop to smell the marinara. I mean, it's really it's the same thing. It's really just slowing down and appreciating the moments.
Well, he had cancer too, so I bet that was part of his lesson.
Yeah.
But something, he's an amazing, extraordinary actor who I have such, I'm such a gift, and that he has taken the time to show us his human side of what he learned as being a prodigy and a child of Italian immigrants. That he is Italian, and we, I love the fact that he opened up his personal life on his terms.
Right.
That's what I thought was very, very cool about that show. And I love all the shows, and I love cooking shows because, again, I just love to watch people make things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky enough, because of my age, I was lucky enough to do, I think it was a Mike Douglas and or Merv Griffin and one of those shows with Julia Child.
Oh, come on.
I did. She was extraordinary. She was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that when people say, "Oh my God, how did you do that?" and I say, "I'm old."
Right.
For 2 words. I'm old. I can do that.
You may be old, but you're not aging. There's 2 different things here. Mm-hmm. You have a young spirit, an old soul, and your chronological age is just a number on a piece of paper on your driver's license. You have a child's mind. You're curious. You're interested. Act interested, my friend. You should say, when I'd ask her, like, what do I do when I'm so bored and I can't? I'm at rehearsal and it's like too much for me. She goes, just act interested. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay. No one has to know. Just act interested. Mm-hmm. And that's you, I think, in so many ways. You're just interested in life. You're interested in people. You're interested in the process. And it's refreshing. It's what keeps you young, frankly.
Yeah, I feel that I've always had the question of, how did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you want to know that, it's out there for you. And that is the one good thing about, the technology, that now, when you ask a question, you can Google everything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Who was the third chorus person in the original version of, oh, okay, bing, 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 there it is. And I think that to me is the information is good. And I love that. I love that. I do love. But I just find that I'm always, and I have been ever since I was a child, ever since I was a kid, I would always say, how'd that happen? And I was always the one. Everybody was always sort of like in the blender in my house of, the thing of being cared for and caring about my mother and all of that. And my sister being 7 years older, my brother being younger, and me being the middle child. I was always the one, when everybody was sort of in the whole thing, I would say, well, how'd this happen? I was always questioning, how'd this happen? I was always the one to stop and say, wait a minute, what's going on, or what happened? So I think I was born with being inquisitive.
Mm-hmm. Well, it served you well.
Well,
I just want to say how grateful I am for this moment that the 4 of us, Lisa, Melanie, Lorna, you and I have all shared. And of course, our listeners are the people in our virtual audience and the people who are still with us. We see you and we hear you, and we really value you. So thank you, everybody, for sharing this time with us.
Lorna. Thanks, Terry, for another great interview.
Thank you. And we'll all get together. We'll all get together very, very, very soon. And and I will call you. And we will get together.
We look forward to it. And soon. Soon, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lorna, we love you so much. And thank you.
I love you guys.
Yeah.
Love you,
it's been a beautiful conversation. Everybody, take good care and stay safe and stay inspired. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, Lorna.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.